Welcome to my course, The Complete Guide to Building an App with ASP.NET Core, React and MobX. My name is Neil Cummings and I'll be taking you through this journey of building this complete application using these technologies. And before we begin, let's just take a very brief look at some of the features that we're going to be adding to the application we're building on this course. So what we're building here is a social network kind of app where users can log in to the application. And once they're in, they'll be presented with a list of activities that are available for them to attend. Now, because it's a social networking application, obviously a user is going to have their own profile, and inside their profile they'll be able to add their description, they'll be able to add photos, and we have a photo widget inside here. So if I just go and add another photo to the list of photos here, what they can do is drag an image in and then resize the image and then upload this particular image via our server to a service that we're using to store the images. Also, because it's a social networking kind of site, there's also a followers system in here as well. And if I click on another user, then I have the option to go and follow this particular user. Now also we're adding form capability to our application. It's not an application if there's no forms in the application. So we've also got a form and we've got client-side validation going on here. But more importantly, we're also adding the security and validation on the server as well. Also, we have little widgets like a date widget in here where we can select a date and time, etc., etc. And if I go back to the activities, then we can view an individual activity. We'll get to see a list of attendees that are going, and we can also cancel our attendance or join the activity. And another feature we're adding as well is a chat system inside here. But we're using SignalR, so if I type a message in here and somebody else anywhere on the planet is connected to our site, or more specifically this activity, then as soon as I click the reply button, they'll also see this pop up in their browser as well. So these are just a few of the features that we're going to be adding to this application. And as I mentioned, the technologies we're using to build them is .NET Core, React and MobX. Now with the .NET Core application, we're going for a multi-project solution here. So we're going to have a different project for each different aspect of our application so that we get a real separation of concerns between our different projects. Also with React, we're going to be using TypeScript to give us type safety for our React application, and we're using MobX for state management. And MobX is written in TypeScript and it's really nice to use with React for our state management. So if you've never used it before, I think you'll like it. As well as these technologies, what we're also using is Entity Framework as our object relational mapper. And this is going to allow us to communicate and query our database. Now the database we're using for development is SQLite, but don't worry about SQLite because we'll be swapping that before we publish our application to both MySQL and SQL Server. We're also using Semantic UI for the styling, and as I mentioned, we're using TypeScript with React to give us type safety. And we're using Git for source control. And I just want to clarify the prerequisites for this course. Now you're either going to be beginner, intermediate or advanced. If you're a beginner and you've never coded before, then this course is probably going to be too difficult. There is a presumption that you've had some coding experience before with an object-oriented programming language. It doesn't have to be .NET Core and it doesn't have to be React, but it would be useful if you've got some knowledge of JavaScript. And again, it doesn't need to be a lot because we explain and go through every line of code we use to build this application. If you're an advanced programmer, this is probably going to be too easy and the pace will probably be a little bit too slow for you. But if you're somewhere in between these two levels, then this course is probably just right for you. I'd say the sweet spot is somewhere in between beginner and intermediate, and this course will certainly help you go from beginner to intermediate. And just to clarify the prerequisites, some programming experience would be helpful. 3 to 6 months should be sufficient. And experience with object-oriented programming. Both C# and TypeScript are object-oriented languages. But if you've taken any of my previous courses, the .NET Core and Angular or the React, Redux and Firestore, then you'll also be absolutely fine with this particular course. And just like my other courses, I like to build completely practical courses where we start from nothing and we end up building a complete project. And most of our learning is learning by doing. We do, of course, discuss concepts, and there is theory sprinkled in with this course. But I expect most of your learning to be done by actually building this particular application. So what you'll need to take part in this course is, of course, a computer, but any flavour of operating system will be fine. Well, any as long as it's a Windows, Mac or Linux computer. Because you will need a computer that's capable of running an IDE. And the code editor I'm using in this course is Visual Studio Code. There are alternatives available that I'll mention during the course itself, but all of the demonstrations I'll be using will be done on VS Code, and the reason for that is it's a free open source code editor. Secondly, it's really good, and it's pretty fast and lightweight. And it's capable of running and compiling the C# code we write in this course. So, with the preamble out the way, let's begin.